So lovely to meet you. So for people who haven't seen it yet, what's American Animals all about?
Well, it's a heist movie, but it's also, I guess, a kind of coming-of-age film and a story of four rather lost young men who are looking in all the wrong places for a way to be interesting and to find a way of having an identity and being special. And so I guess it's both of those things. You know, it's a heist movie about an art theft, but it's also a kind of a movie about existential angst and and sort of finding out who you are in a very costly way.
And how did you come across this story? What sparked your interest in it, and what made you want to put it on the big screen?
I read about it in a magazine on a flight, and I thought, wow, this is I couldn't believe it was a true, it read like the plot to an old movie. And then the fact that the people who actually perpetrated the crime were these fairly well-educated, very well-educated, privileged young kids from good backgrounds and good homes. There was something about it just didn't quite sit right, and not least the fact they could ever have expected to get away with it. And so we tracked down the real people, and at that point, and this is a bit of a spoiler, but at that point they were serving quite a long prison sentence. And we started a correspondence. You know, I worked with Poppy Dixon, who I worked with on The Imposter, and I sent her down there to meet with them in prison. And the things they said about their motivations were the things that, for me, I guess, took it from, wow, this is an amazing heist movie, to this is really a story of our time about people who've been raised to believe that their lives are going to be interesting and special and that they're going to be important and noteworthy. And and as most of us realize when you get into adulthood, we're probably going to be average. And I think we live in a culture where being average is probably not okay anymore somehow. It's sort of like being a loser. And so it's an unrealistic set of expectations. And I think that's part of what was driving the crime in a way.
And you've got an incredible cast there, not least Evan Peters and Barry Keoghan. I mean, these are two individually very interesting actors, and then to put them together. Yeah. So what was it like working with them, and how did you bring them out?
I feel like the four main guys in this, and actually you got Ann Dowd, who's like one of the greatest actors on the planet. I feel like they are, honestly, the best of their generation. I feel incredibly fortunate. Barry and Evan are kind of very opposite in their approach. Barry is like this kind of live wire, and he's constantly bouncing around and joking and mucking about, and Evan is deadly serious, and he is a really superb, committed actor. And Barry is equally superb, but just comes at it from a completely different way. Just shows up and has to kind of feel it.
I mean, you seem to play around a lot with this kind of line between fiction and fact and storytelling, but you also like playing around with movie genres as well. You sort of like mentions there to Ocean's 11 and Goodfellas and stuff. So how do you characterize your film style, and how do you like to use it?
I guess, everything, all of the, structure and the form and everything comes out of just the story and the cues that the story, provokes in my mind about, there were a lot of moments where, when I was talking to the real guys, they remembered exactly the same thing but completely differently. So same incident but from different, happening in a different place, or described a guy who they remembered looking different. And so rather than choosing one or the other, I figured, well, let's just sort of pull the curtain back on how movies get fictionalized and stories get fictionalized, and we'll have both versions, and we start to kind of invite the audience into the process of the kind of the construction of the movie. And so I think hopefully because of that your engagement with it changes. You feel like you participate a little more.
Can you quickly tell us, you got any other projects coming up?
Yeah, the next thing I'm doing it's also set in America, and it's not a true story. But in a way, weirdly, it's probably less outlandish than either this or The Imposter. It kind of could have been a true story. And I guess what I'll be looking for is how to get the audience to engage with it in a way that, that they will with this, that it feels like it's set in the world that you and I inhabit. It's sort of a kind of Trumpian story about a charlatan that no one really wants to believe is is a charlatan, and it's all about that idea of alternative truths and how we choose to believe the things that suit us. As you've seen, the real people are in it as well, which I think changes your connection to both the film and the characters, probably. Yeah, I mean, I think probably it was the real guy. I thought it was a great story, and and we all love a heist movie, but I think there's something about the fact that it's true and making the audience understand that in a way that you don't really get to see very often, that it's a slightly unconventional way of telling a true story, but hopefully because of it, you as an audience play a lot. You don't get to go off into movie world where the consequences aren't real and it doesn't really affect you. I think in this, you have a pretty, if that were you or I attempting something as misguided as this, you'd probably get a good sense of what that might feel like. The edit was very much as per the screenplay. The script contained both the real people and also, obviously, the majority of it is the actors who portray them. And, it's hard to know whether what works well on paper is going to work, on film in the way that you imagine it will. And in this case, everyone was like, so how's that going to work? And, if that doesn't work, can we sort of take it out and, just have the movie stuff? And the truth is that, it was always going to be, there wasn't ever going to be another version which was going to be like without the non-fiction bits. It's either like Warren's line in the film, you're either in or you're out on this. And I felt that if it worked, which it, my audience's reactions, it seems to have worked, that you will get a different experience from the one, I guess, you normally have. You still get to deliver on the heist movie, which we all demand, but hopefully you also get this other thing, which is a bit more skin in the game somehow. It's an art heist, so it's the story of 4 young men who discover that one of them goes to a university which has a vault in the library, and in that vault is some of the most valuable books in the world. And they decide they kind of begin by fantasizing about what it might be like to plan the perfect robbery. And that idea, which starts as a kind of joke and starts as a fantasy, goes a little too far. Existential art heist. Okay, I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons why you should go and watch the movie, obviously. I think the one in particular is that if you're not a born criminal, like, I don't know about you, but I'm not, I think if you watch this movie and you wondered what it might feel like to plan and execute a robbery, if you see this film, I think it'll probably give you the closest idea of what that experience might be like, and not in a good way. As in, you'll really feel the adrenaline and the tension and, I guess, the violence of it.
So, Bart, you in the middle, and then, yeah. Two on the side, okay, balance. You want to balance out, come this way. And then just large at the front. Could you all just start with me in the middle here?
Could I get all eyes to the top row here, please?
And all eyes to your left, please. Thanks very much. And top row there, please. Lovely. Thank you very much.
And again to the top row, please.
Just a break here, please.
One more.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. That's great. So I'm going to pull Bart back up, and I think we're going to keep the rest of it as well.